Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be predicting the 2026 Senate midterms if it were held today, the exact day this video is published. So if it were held today, how the Senate race map would look like, and we're going to be using in Mary Peltola's polling factor to put into this prediction for the other states as well. So if Mary Peltola is doing this well, you can imagine the Democrats across the board in some of these states like Maine, maybe perhaps Texas or Ohio even, Sherrod Brown, are doing well as well. So it really depends on who they nominate, whether it's John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, for example, on the Republican side, and the Democratic side, same thing. It depends who they nominate as well, whether it's in Maine, Plattner or Janet Mills, the other candidate there. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, and press the like button, share this video. Don't forget, we have memberships. If you're interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. So, brand new polling from Alaska survey research just came out that shows Mary Peltola defeating Dan Sullivan in 3 polls, all of them within 5 percentage points. I think the first one had her up by 5, the second one had her up by 4, and then same thing with the third one. So it was all within between like 3 to 5 percentage points, which is a lean margin, kind of close to likely if you think about it in terms of the margins. It's not really, it's actually closer to her margin of victory is actually closer to being likely than it is to tilt, which, as you all know, tilt meaning is under a percentage point. But this pollster really is more on the accurate side, but it still underestimated Donald Trump in the last election. I believe it had him winning Alaska the entire time up until the actual election day in 2024 by about 7 to 9 percentage points. It had him winning it by most at 10 at the very most. His real margin was 13. So yes, you can see that they underestimated him by just a few points. So this pollster is known to slightly be underestimating Republicans at the same time being very accurate. They are accurate regardless if they are slightly underestimating Republicans, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So let's begin with this map. So you can see they had him winning it by 9. He won it by 13. That's underestimating Trump, the Republican candidate, by 4 points. So if you add that to here, if they underestimated this poll from Alaska Research Survey, which has Mary Peltola up by 4 points on average, 4 to 5 with the new polling, because this same pollster actually had Dan Sullivan winning by about 5 to 7 points about several months ago. I believe 5 months ago, this same exact pollster, which shows Mary Peltola now winning, had Sullivan up by 5 to 7 points. You can see the shifts and the trends. So it's not like this pollster always had Peltola winning. No, that's not the case. So even though his approval rating has been low, it's gotten better. But ever since it's gotten better, it's kind of weird. Mary Peltola took the lead. When Sullivan was at his worst approval rating, he was winning with this poll, with this exact pollster. But ever since his approval rating increased from 39 to 41%, 2 points increasing, his approval rating improved by 2 points. Now she takes the lead, which is kind of interesting. Don't you think that she would be winning the polls when his approval rating is at its lowest and not when it's creeping up to 2%? And I know people say that he's a very popular incumbent, Dan Sullivan is. That is true. But not right now, actually. He's one of the more unpopular governors, believe it or not. I had to actually double check. And he is actually unpopular. In the past, he was very popular. I mean, he won his last race by, I believe, about 11%. But keep in mind, Mary Peltola is a very strong Democratic candidate, you guys. She can do very well with the Native Americans. That's important in the state of Alaska. So, because we're speaking about Alaska, let's begin. And I can say if the election was held today, Mary Peltola would win and defeat Dan Sullivan by a tilt margin of in between 0 to 1%. With a decimal, 0.4, 0.6. That's the margin she would win by right now. That's not the margin the poll. I mean, my margin is not what the poll shows, but she's winning by 5 and 4 from the new Alaska poll. I have her slightly winning it by less than what they suggest, just because I think they're going to underestimate Republicans ever so slightly, just because it's more of a blue wave year. It's more favorable for Democrats. So a lot of Republicans are more silent, and they might show up, even though they aren't suggesting they will right now. And it may be the opposite because, in fact, in 2025, the polls underestimated Democrats, which usually typically does not happen. So we talked about Alaska for a lot in this video. Let's move on to the next state, Texas. If the election was held today, the exact day this video is published, I will tell you right now, James Tallarico will not win. Not quite. It's going to be close, but maybe he'll perform like better or work, losing by just a couple points. I know that was against Ted Cruz, but let's just say Trump endorses John Cornyn, and that's what's to be expected, right? If he doesn't, that's a totally different story, and Tallarico can absolutely win. But as of right now, we expect, because this is as of right now, John Cornyn to be the nominee. It's not like he's the best candidate ever, but he is the best candidate over Ken Paxton. So right now, Cornyn wins by a margin of probably 4 to 5 percentage points, and lead margin over Tallarico. This state was a very, very red state in 2024. People should not forget that. So it's not going to go blue as of today. So Georgia, it's going to go blue regardless. It's a very trending blue state. It's a purple state. It's no longer a red state. Georgia, I expect to go blue in not only the 2026 midterms, but also the 2028 presidential election as well. Jon Ossoff is not as good as Raphael Warnock. So Raphael Warnock obviously is better, especially with the black vote. Jon Ossoff, not that much, but still, he doesn't have competition, so he's going to win by a lean margin, expanding his margin from 2020's special election of, I believe, just 1 point. I think he wins it this time around by as much as 3.5%, maybe 3 to 4%, somewhere in between there. So it's a lean margin for Jon Ossoff. He does not have any competition. You have North Carolina, Roy Cooper, very strong Democratic candidate. I believe he was the previous governor in this state. So he's probably going to be their next senator over Michael Whatley, the Republican. So Michael Whatley isn't the worst candidate in the world. Right now, it's what the Republicans are offering, but he's still not good enough to defeat Roy Cooper. It should be blue, not red. North Carolina will vote for Roy Cooper by about 5 to 4 percentage points if the election was held exactly today. Ohio, believe it or not, if the election is held today, I think Sherrod Brown pulls out the victory. He's facing John Husted. I just think that Ohioans might look at this and be like, okay, maybe we were better off when Sherrod Brown was senator. Maybe we need another Democrat. Trump's in office. Republicans, control all the branches of governments, and we don't like what they're doing. So I'm putting, if I was in Ohio and that's my perspective, that's what I think what they would vote for. So I think Sherrod Brown wins by tilt margin. Now, don't get me wrong, polls in Ohio typically early on show Democrats win, but then their margin winds down as we get closer to November. That may happen. And, John Husted wins and Sherrod Brown loses. But I think this time around, that may not be the case because Republicans are just doing so terrible and Trump's doing the best he can to possibly lose the midterms. He's trying so hard to lose the midterms. So Ohio's on track to be blue. Alaska's on track to be blue. Iowa, I think is going to be likely R. Iowa's going to be closer this time around than it usually is, especially for the governor's race. So Democrats have better chances at flipping the governor's race of Iowa than they do for the Senate, which is why it's a likely red. Michigan, you have Mike Rogers, who almost won, by the way, in 2024. He barely lost to Alyssa Slotkin by under a percentage point. That was a more favorable year for Republicans. This year's more favorable for Democrats, the total complete opposite. Donald Trump was on the ballot. Trump is no longer on the ballot, and even if he was, he's more unpopular now than he was in 2024, clearly. So, odds point Mike Rogers is going to lose by more than he did last time. And if this is a more favorable year for Republicans, he would actually do better this time around than his first time because he actually almost won. I think Mike Rogers is the best chance for Republicans in Michigan, but he's not going to win. I think Michigan will be lean blue, so it goes from tilt to lean. So an improvement for the Democrats. You have Maine, the last and final state. I mentioned this earlier. Janet Mills might be the Democratic candidate. She's going to lose the age debate because she's older than her Republican opponent, Susan Collins. And then you have Plattner. If Plattner is the nominee, I think he gives Democrats a better shot at winning. I'm assuming if he does become the nominee, which I think most polls show it's going to be, it's going to be Janet Mills. And if that's the case, it's still going to be close because, Susan Collins is on track to honestly lose. I know she's a very popular incumbent, but she's going to have to lose at some point, man. And I think it just might have to be right now. I'm going to say this is tilt blue. things can change. Susan Collins can definitely win, as she's shown she can, despite what the polls suggest her losing. She always does win. But if this is the case that the election is held today, I would say Maine is still blue. So Democrats actually win 51-49. I know the map is so favorable for the Republicans. So if they were to win, if they were to lose, they would have to mess this up so bad that they would lose this map that's so favorable for them. And it looks like they did mess this up so bad. 51-49, Democrats flip control of the Senate if the election is held today. This is my prediction. Let me know what states you agree with or disagree with in the comment section down below and why. One final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out my content, and press the like button. Share this video. Don't forget we have memberships if you're interested. You can find links to that in the description section. Thank you everyone for watching.